Your attention now. Bring your attention now to item number 2. If you've worked on your agenda briefings, page 9. Item number 2, Executive Director will present an overview of the FY22 annual report, which features a financial report with program highlights of the way Centralina is responding to the local communities in our region. I'll now recognize our Executive Director, Geraldine Gardner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I want to offer a very warm welcome to our delegates who have joined us in person. This is our first Board of Delegates meeting in person since February of 2020. So I've only been able to meet some of you over Zoom as a little square on a screen. So I'm really excited to see you and meet you in person. And I appreciate our delegates who have joined us via Zoom as well. Relationship building and getting to know our communities and for you all to get to know each other is a really important part of this organization and how we do our work. So moving forward, we will continue to offer the option for our delegates to join us via Zoom. But we really appreciate those of you who are able to join us in person so that we can do more things like the open house that we did tonight. So you get to know our wonderful staff and hear more about the work that we do across the region. I'm here this evening to talk you through some of our highlights and accomplishments from our fiscal year ending June 30 of last year, or well, this year, but last fiscal year. It's a requirement of our bylaws to present this annual report to the Board of Delegates at this meeting. You will be receiving a member packet via mail next week. In that member packet will be information and a copy of this wonderful annual report. And I'm just going to walk you through some of the highlights this evening. We can go to the next slide. So as you all know, you approve for us on an annual basis a work plan that outlines our key actions and activities. So I'm very pleased to share with you at the end of last fiscal year, we completed 77% of the over 140 individual action items that were in our work plan. We initiated another 16% or 22 actions that roll over to this fiscal year. And 10 actions, either we did not begin because of lack of funding or lack of staff capacity. Happens, we're a very ambitious group. So those actions have been incorporated into this year's work plan. So we're very pleased with this progress and overall the amount of activity we were able to deliver for the region and for your individual communities last year. Next slide. In our annual report, we hit a top 5 highlights from the year. That is the structure of the document. So this is our top 5 looking back at last fiscal year. The first one, which you all approved at your August meeting, was our new strategic plan. So this included our regional dialogue series engagement from last fall. So we spoke with over 300 individuals. As part of that process, we did a lot of engagement with our board, and we're very excited to have this new strategic document to guide our activities. Our second highlight for last year was the work that we did in supporting our local governments with the American Rescue Plan implementation. This is another ongoing item that we're continuing to work on this year. Overall, we helped 12 individual communities develop spending plans or grant project ordinances for their ARPA dollars. We held over 17 different briefings and created a range of toolkits and other guides to support local governments in making strategic decisions. Our third highlight was the completion of the Regional Resilience Collaboration. This is a county level effort. We worked across all 9 counties with our emergency managers to develop recovery plans to help our communities be more resilient if disaster, whether that's man-made or economic or natural disasters, strike. How can our communities bounce back and collaborate across our counties? Our fourth highlight was promoting vaccine awareness. Our aging department led a region-wide effort reaching over 2 million older adults that helped lead to a 47% increase in the vaccination rate. We had billboards, we produced materials. Some of the swag bag items you have with you tonight were a result of that campaign. I'm very happy about the work that we did on that, especially delivering materials in Spanish language and other formats. And our last top 5 is our workforce services. We all know there are labor challenges around the region. Our workforce board that serves 7 out of our 9 counties created really the first in the state workforce development app that's downloadable to your smartphone that holds all sorts of information about available jobs and training opportunities. So we're really excited about the different innovative tools that they've been using to support career seekers. Next slide, Kelly. One of the things that we like to do in the report is to highlight a map of all the places where we've worked across the region. This year, there were too many dots on the map. So our graphic designer said, you know what, you have to be a little more selective. So we worked with over 40 local governments this past year, offering different types of services. 100 different service categories, everything from HR and strategic planning to land use planning, grant support, code enforcement, housing, and mobility planning. So we're really proud of the work that we do in our communities, and we're happy that we get to work with even more communities as we go year by year. The last element of our work that you all know about is our workforce and aging services. So this past fiscal year, just to give you a couple of statistics, we completed 887 technical assistance and information requests from long-term care residents through our ombudsman program. We held 49 evidence-based workshops on different health and wellness topics. We delivered 79,000 referrals, job referrals through our career centers, and worked with over 1,788 employers. So we have to track these statistics, but behind all these statistics are your constituents and our residents, and we're really proud of the services that we get to offer them. Next slide, Kelly. So I'm also very pleased to present to the board that I know that I have the most amazing staff in the region. But others are recognizing that as well. So we have won a lot of awards this past year. Our National Association of Development Organizations, or NATO, recognized 3 of our projects this year with a National Innovation Award: the Regional Dialogue Series, the Regional Resilience Collaborative, and the Workforce App, all part of our highlights this year. Our aging team won 2 awards for their Pride and Care initiative, and Connect Beyond continues to rack up awards with two awards from a national engineering organization and the NC chapter of planning. So we're really excited that this great work is also recognized across the region and the nation. I think I have one more slide, right, Kelly? So before I turn to that, just very quickly, as part of the annual report, we do have a financial report for this past year. The executive board will receive the audit briefing at their next meeting. We have in total revenues last fiscal year, $24,420,616. That includes technical assistance revenue, intergovernmental transfers, which is our federal funding, membership dues, and other types of revenue. On the expenditure side, we had a total expenditures of $24,493,316. We did have a deficit of $72,700, and that was due to the one-time moving expenses into this building. And I would like to inform the board on that. You did approve us a budget of over $250,000 for that. We came in way under, so 72,000 compared to what you authorized of 250. I think it was pretty good on our part, considering this itself was a major project this past year. So last but not least, just to give you a quick snapshot of where we are for this fiscal year, in terms of our first quarter highlights, 72% of our action items have been initiated. We've completed one, so we're doing well. And the rest of the 26% we're going to be continuing to roll out as we go forward into the fiscal year. So I'm very pleased with our progress so far, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have about our annual report.
Thank you, Geraldine. Any questions for our executive director? Again, you'll be receiving this in the mail to review further. Any questions, comments? I have one, and it was a slide. Kelly, you don't have to go back to it. It was a slide that showed our region, showed the 9 counties and all the work that Centralina had done with the local governments. And I was counting Gaston County, my gosh, you know, there's all kinds of little dots for Gaston County. I counted 9. So y'all have done well in Gaston County, you know, as far as reaching out to Centralina for the various things that are offered. I think Gaston County cluttered up the map more than any of the rest of them. We want to see clutter. That's good. That's good. But that was a very interesting slide, and it'll be in the book, right? So when you get that, please note that. You see all the other counties and everyone else that's involved. So I always enjoy that shot of our counties and who's doing what regarding our local governments within.
Mr. Chairman, I had a comment.
Yes, sir.
Gene Halfardale. I'm the District 12 Director for the NCACC, and I wanted to again applaud Geraldine's acknowledgments of what the staff has done. We're members of NACO as well, and the president attended our annual meeting this year for NACO, and she recognized or acknowledged the things that we're doing in our regions. And I just wanted to say great job and to let them know that we are on the map and people are paying attention to what we're doing and how we're doing it. So I wanted to congratulate staff and Geraldine on the work they're doing.
Thank you. Commissioner has been very involved in the Association of County Commissioners. In fact, he's been an officer, so to speak, or a director in that organization. So we appreciate his input. Thank you again, Commissioner. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geraldine. We only had one motion for tonight. That was the one we had regarding the agenda. So we'll move on, bring your attention now to item 3 in your agenda. From Christina Danis, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Briefing. So the board of delegates receive an overview regarding the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy for the region with the initiative of Economic Development District. So Christina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello, everyone. Good to see you all in person. I'm actually, if you're here, I'm sitting around the corner from you in the Community Economic Development and Planning neighborhood that you visited tonight. And for those of you that weren't able to attend, I look forward to meeting with you in person, either here or in your communities as we move forward. Next slide. So the CEDS, the Community Economic Development Strategy, is actually an entity that is part of the Centralina Economic Development District, which is a 501c3, a nonprofit. It has a separate board of directors with Chair Mayor Miles Atkins. And this is a federally designated economic development district by the U.S. Economic Development Administration. And the district serves as the regional economic development partner and facilitator. So tonight I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it is, why it matters, and what happens next with the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, the document that is required by the US EDA for the district every 5 years. Next slide. Okay, so on this slide, the regional economic development themes, there are 4 of them that rose up out of the work that we did with the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, or CEDS. And they're related to business and climate competitiveness, which looks at things like supply chain and trade in global markets, supportive infrastructure, which looks at both physical, like utilities and transportation and community, housing and childcare. Very important is the talent, workforce, and education, which is changing dramatically in the last 5 years, where we have opportunities for greater industry collaboration, pathways and apprenticeship, and artificial intelligence and automation, and the implications that has on our workforce. So these are the themes, and what the SEDS does is help the district understand what's going on in these 4 themes areas and looks at county level efforts to address them on a regional collaborative component. So the SEDS is really all about collaboration and lifting up what's going on across the region at the county and at the sub-county level and sharing that information with EDA so that we can get greater opportunities for grant funding and collaboration on layering of dollars as we move forward. Next slide. So this is our fabulous team that works on the SEDS. You know, Geraldine, myself, of course, Anna Lou Wilson, you may have known, she's from the Workforce Board. She's been at Centralina now for about 4 or 5 years. She transferred over to the Community Economic Development Department to assist with the SEDS in late summer of this year. And it's a really great opportunity to bring her workforce and talent components into the Comprehensive Economic Development Group and into the SEDS planning process. So if there are any questions about the SEDS moving forward, these are the individuals you can speak with about it. We look forward to talking and working with you more about the SEDS as this new 5-year update is launched. Next slide. So as I mentioned, what is the SEDS? It's actually required by the EDA as part of the Economic Development District. And it's to be updated every 5 years, and it requires an annual report. It is submitted to the EDA regional office for approval. We work with Hillary Sherman, who is our EDA regional contact, and she attends actually our district meetings, and we meet with her regular as the SEDS is developed, is implemented, and is examined every year. And the SEDS committee is organized in a way that must represent the main economic interests of the region. That is a requirement for various EDA funding that the SEDS be part of any EDA public works and economic adjustment assistance program and CARES Act funding. So the SEDS is this document that is required. It's locally based, regionally driven, and it is different from your local development plans. All of you probably have an economic development component in your development plans, and you're working in your own areas in the region of economic development. But this differs because this examines all the regional assets and challenges together and looks at opportunities for assessing the goal of promoting those regional economic development with a long-term SEDS, and looks at the assets across the region so that they can be leveraged and effectively and efficiently attain the desired goals. So locally important, yes, all of your economic development components are, and we're there to help you leverage them and bring them even better into fruition across the region. And we're really going to focus on implementation. The SEDS is really the North Star or a guide. There are specific goals and requirements, and I'll talk a little bit more about them, but it really is locally based and regionally driven. Next slide. So as I mentioned, there are required components by EDA. It guides this process, but it also allows for great flexibility within the document for approach and timing of actions. The EDA has also required greater incorporation of resilience and equity in this SEDS, particularly as a result of the pandemic, other climate concerns, and the ability to address economic shocks before they happen in economic development planning. So these are the requirements component of the SEDS, and they're in the document. But how you tell this story is really up to each district to come up with that plan. Next slide. So this is the vision. This vision is slightly tweaked from the last vision for the SEDS, which was the 2017 to the 2022 plan, the 5-year plan. And this is really tweaked in a way that talks about inclusivity for supporting businesses, innovators, and individuals. It takes it from the region to all of the counties, to the businesses, down to the individuals. And it actually indicates that it's a prosperous and globally connected future. It was very important as we were going through the vision statement to ensure that all of those I's were in there, P's, and globally connected. So what does this mean? How? Action. Regionally collaboration to inclusively support. Who? Our audiences, businesses, innovators, and individuals. And why? Reach a prosperous and globally connected future. So that's the components of the SEDS vision statement. Next slide. The said structure really allows for us to work with the steering committee, the vision, the working groups, as well as other actors. We've conducted surveys and outreach, started with the regional dialogue series that was recognized with an award throughout this process to start listening what is important for the SEDS and what can happen over 5 years. We want to make sure that we stay in that 5-year. And we also want to look at when those vision and goals are designed and the recommendations and implementation actions are defined, what are we going to do with near term? So we decided in the SEDS to do a near term action at between, it looks at January 2023 through June 2025, about halfway, about 2.5 years into the SEDS, to talk about who needs it, things, what is needed, when, what resources are needed. Are we being specific and clear in these implementation actions? Do they make sense anymore? Has the world, something crazy happened in the last 2.5 years we didn't think about or know about? So we've given ourselves this near-term implementation action in the SEDS to examine some of conditions about midpoint through the 5-year period. And it allows us to keep a pulse on what's going on and refine and think and act accordingly. So now I'm going to take you through some of the goals and recommendations that are going to talk about where we're headed on the SEDS and tell the story of why it matters for our region. Next slide. So goal 1 is about expanding economic opportunity for all. And this is really about people. And a great deal of the recommendations for this goal involve collaboration and bolstering of existing workforce development boards and entrepreneurship initiatives, and working with our existing regional partners to leverage and lift up what's working and to enhance and bolster that which needs a greater opportunity to prevail and be successful. So this is about those workforce development boards. What was really important in the SEDS was about childcare and early child education. It was lifted up as a priority during this 5-year period, and about connectivity and collaboration for entrepreneurs and small businesses. So this is a little bit about where goal 1, or our people goal, is headed. Next slide. Goal 2, enhancing enhancing regional and community supportive infrastructure. This is really about place. This is about what happens on the ground in communities across the region, whether those areas be our cities or our suburban areas or our rural areas or in between. So this is about place. And this goal really looks to align with the work of Centralina and the strategic work plan and harmonize those initiatives and leverage funding opportunities and partnerships across the region. So one example of this goal is supporting the NC State Institute for Emerging Issues mission to have a digital inclusion plan prepared for every North Carolina county. So one of the things that in order for place to be a robust opportunity for economic mobility is access and availability of broadband. So that is one component that you'll see in this goal. And we also are building upon the good work of Connect Beyond, the Greater Charlotte Regional Freight Mobility, and looking at gaps and opportunities in infrastructure investments and connections to employment. So that's the place goal, or goal 2. Next slide. This is goal 3, and goal 3 is really about that economy, the larger economy, strengthening the economic resilience and global competitiveness of the region and its economic growth. So this goal is an opportunity to work with our economic development advisory councils, the economic development leaders throughout the region and the counties and cities, and inform recommendations for this goal. So this is where we can partner together when we go after grants or leverage funding or make sure that we're collaborating on economic resilience, and particularly looking at our industry clusters, the 5 industry clusters that exist across the region, and supporting them with research and development, getting talent to make sure that they have the workforce to grow and thrive and also attract them to our region. And then looking at our research and development capacity and capability, engaging with universities. So this goal is really about that larger economic development. So we've got people, place, and economy. And these are the 3 large goals that are informing the SEDS. So I've told you a little bit about what it is. I've told you a little bit about why it matters and how it informs opportunities in the region, both locally, at the county and across the region and even beyond. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit about where we're headed. Next slide. So we're in the process of editing the SEDS right now. We've been working very hard on it. There's a 10-day comment period. We put it out to the steering committee and our working groups, and we've drafted strategies. So it's a very inclusive opportunity for those that are working with us. We've completed that. And you'll see in October, we're completing the document. We canceled the original meeting for October 20th to sort of put heads down, pen to paper, and really draft the document. This also allowed for us, when we meet on November 17th with the district board to approve the SEDS, to allow for a 10-day open comment period on the SEDS document. So why not, but October transfer allowed us to put heads down and get it out to the public so that we could do that before it went to the district for consideration to approve on November 17th. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. This concludes my presentation of the SEDS background briefing, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Thanks for your time and attention.
Thank you, Christina. Any questions for Christina regarding the SEDS plan? Everyone knows economic development is key to our economy and growth. You represent wherever you're from, so it's very key that she does that. Of course, she mentioned too that the district she spoke of is a requirement of EDA, so it's something that Centralina is following through. It's a requirement for it, plus it benefits our 9 counties and our 60+ local governments represented.
I do have a quick question. So she mentioned who the target audience was, the stakeholders were in one of the earlier slides. I'm a little bit newer to this, so I just want to make sure I understand. It's still the towns that are working with SEDS to receive these grants, and then the towns are working on it, or is it going through the counties? Or how does that work with grants? What's the flow and how does that work?
Gina, do you want to take that one or you want me to?
You can take that one. It's hard to hear from where I'm at. I'm sorry.
Or to the microphone. So the question was, who's the beneficiary of grants? Is that the?
Well, and what, so if the beneficiary you say is a small business, is the small business working with SEDS to receive those benefits? Or do they have to work through the town to receive those benefits? Or do they have to work through the county to receive those benefits? Or do they have to work directly with SEDS to receive those benefits?
It's a great question. So the type of federal funding that the SEDS allows us to unlock is high-level, large grants to support infrastructure, to support investments by our colleges and universities in new facilities that train people, or the other type of investment category is around programming for small business assistance centers or economic, like entrepreneurship type of incubators and things like that. So the type of funding that the SEDS allows us to apply for, and by us, I mean Centralina, your county economic development agencies, or individual local governments, is not small business support grants. That's a completely different.
Benefits by those being available.
Right.
Your
Exactly.
county and local.
So EDA is about public infrastructure because it's about what can the public sector invest in to support economic opportunity as opposed to the beneficiary of individual businesses.
Gotcha.
That's the subtlety that that's more of the Small Business Administration that does that.
Yep, gotcha. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Great question, Michael. Thank you. Anything else? Good. Christina, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else to receive as information? Read more information on that coming, I'm sure. Take your attention, please, to item number 4. The Aging Pearls Program Briefing. Cornelia Williams will present that. Cornelia?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kamaya Williams. I'm an aging
Hi, I'm sorry.
specialist. Yeah, oh, that's okay. I'm an aging specialist and project coordinator for the Pearls program. The Pearls program stands for the Program to Encourage Active and Rewarding Lives. And with this program, we actually received a 3-year grant provided by UNC Asheville under the Administration on Community Living for the 2022 year. Next slide, please. So just a brief description of the program. As I stated, it is a community-based program, also known as evidence-based. It is designed to reduce, so we're not necessarily treating depression, but just to reduce it, depression in physically impaired and socially isolated older adults. The PEARLS program is based on 3 fundamental principles, and that is to figure out what the participant is experiencing and the symptoms as far as depression and isolation, to close the link between depression and unsolved problems, and to increase participation in social, physical, and other pleasant activities that will decrease the depressive symptoms. So our goal is to have 6 to 8 sessions in home, virtually, or in a community setting, and we will focus on brief behavioral techniques where we will create a 9-step problem where we will focus on it for each session. Next slide. So why is the PEARLS program important? Well, one, is actually no program like this in North Carolina area. So to have it here at Centralina, that's a very big thing, being that we're going to pilot it here. And if everything goes well, which I'm sure it will, we will pass it out. I see you, Katie. We will spread it across the Centralina area so that people all across North Carolina area can have access to the PEARLS program. And then as far as the data, we found out that 1 in 5 older adults may experience depression, and that includes people of color, living in poverty, may speak a different language, may have complex health issues, live alone, and tend to be isolated. They carry a higher risk for depression. Health-wise, we saw that depression does impact your quality of life, the way you function, and the way you deal with certain things. So depression does increase dementia and makes it harder to manage your chronic health conditions. So the treatment, unfortunately, depression is treatable, but unfortunately, older adults do not get the proper or adequate treatment due to stigma, poverty, and racism. And as I said earlier, the PEARLS program is not currently available in the North Carolina area, which makes it ideal that it is added to the Centralina programs. Next slide. Oh, can you go back one? Thank you. So who's eligible for our services? So as I stated, it is for adults 60 years and older, adults who may have minor depression or persistent depressive disorder. And that is just basically an ongoing or low grade of depression for 2 or more years. And we'll be able to measure that with a PHQ-9 scale. And that's basically just measuring your depression symptoms. And then we'll calculate it all together to figure out if you have minor depression or persistent depressive disorder. Adults who may have major depression, and adults with epilepsy or co-occurring depression. Next slide. So I just wanted to give you all a quick status update of where we are so far. I had to complete a lot of training, but it's been very exciting just to learn about the PEARLS program and how I can be of help to Centralina and the people that we will serve. So I had to do a PEARLS training. I had to have the toolkit. We just got a licensed clinical social worker who will supervise me while I'm on the PEARLS training and while I'm dealing with constituents in the area. I've been working with the University of Washington. I spoke to a few other PEARLS coaches in Texas. We did have a suicide assessment training that I had to complete for 2 days, and a belonging and empathy training. I was able to do a home visit and safety procedures toolkit with Katie, and I had another person on my team that we kind of got that together, being that the world is opening back up and we're able to do in-home visits as well. And most importantly, we're going to keep all of that information in a HIPAA approved wellware database so that all of the PEARLS participants' information will be safe. And I believe that's pretty much it. So the last slide you can go to the next slide, is my contact information. My name again is Kamaya Williams. That is my email, and my mobile phone number is attached. Does anyone have any questions about the PROS program? And if you would like to know more information, please don't hesitate to give me a call or email.
Thank you, Kamaya. Any questions for Kamaya Williams? Kelly, leave that slide up there if anybody wants to write the information down, please. Also, Kamaya, may I add, page 34 in my packet is a tool location. It says www.pearlsprogram.org. If anyone logs onto that, what's that going to tell us?
I'm sorry, it's a lot of movement. I couldn't really hear your question.
Oh,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
heard, it's okay.
In my packet on page 34, it gives a email of www or website www.pearlsprogram.org. If anyone logs onto that, what does it tell us?
So it's just a website to let you know exactly what the PROS program is. It may have a list of places that offer the PROS program, but like I said, being that North Carolina does not have it and Centralina is the only place that is actually piloting the PROS program, you won't find anything for the North Carolina area on there. But it's just to
Okay.
give you an overview of what the PROS program is. Mhm.
Which is the reason your information is up there for those. And I tell you
Yes.
what you stated can affects everybody in this room. We all know someone.
Yes.
We all know someone that's affected by this. Martha Sue Hall has a question.
No, just a comment when you finish,
I'm finished. Go ahead.
So just to folks that are on screen and in here too, over the many years that I've been associated with Centralina, this COG region is the largest in the state. And I can say this, Geraldine's not in here now, which I'd say it if she were, but we pilot and have been known to pilot and are the leaders in a lot of different things, a lot of different programs. So Kamaya, is it your intention for us to get this under our belt and share it and then maybe with other COGs across the state?
Yes, it is my intention to get it up and running in our selected county. And then once it's time for our renewal for the grant, show them all the process that we made so that they can then share it with other areas across the North Carolina area.
And I guess it just goes back to reiterate that we are on, and I don't like to use the word cutting edge because everybody uses it for a lot of different reasons. But Centralina is and has been. So I just, I give you all accolades and atta-girls, not necessarily atta-boys for doing this, because just as Bobby was saying, we all know folks who depression is real. And it should, and you don't need to be embarrassed about it. You just need to be dealing with it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Martha.
thank you.
Kamaya. Perfect. That's perfect.
Thank
And I want to say this too, Kamaya, you know, as Martha Sue said, cutting edge, whatever word you want to use. The area on aging here at Centralina has always been that way. They've always been upfront, top notch. The lead of anything health related comes out of this building or comes out of this office, this organization. So again, accolades and everything to the area on aging folks and all the work you do throughout the health area here in our region. It's just a wonderful organization that drives all this. So thank you so much. Anything else? We'll go to our last agenda item number 5, the state advocacy agenda discussion. Delegates, that's to provide feedback. So we have to get involved with this on priorities for Centralina state advocacy agenda. And we're on Kelly West and we'll present this. I think we've got a little table work to do, tabletop work. Okay, Kelly, thank you.
So the purpose of this item tonight really is to give you all an update on our state engagement efforts, as well as to get some input from you on our advocacy agenda that we're going to be developing. So just wanted to start with a little recap of our state engagement initiative. It's something we've been calling Raleigh Relations, or our Raleigh Relations strategy. And really it's a 3-pronged approach to engagement. And so the first sort of prong with that is relationship building. And really that's strengthening existing relationships and establishing new ones with members of the state legislature and state agencies as well. The second is statewide advocacy. And so that's really supporting solutions to the common challenges shared by COGs across the state. And we primarily do that through our involvement in the North Carolina Association of Regional Councils of Government. And then the third part is regional advocacy. And so that's raising awareness of region-specific issues at the state level. And that's kind of where we want to focus this evening. We've been working with the consulting firm EQB Strategic that's been helping us on implementing our whole Raleigh relations activities. And we have with us, I believe we have with us this evening, Chris Wall. Chris, are you there?
Yes, Kelly, I'm here.
Chris?
Kelly,
So-
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
All right,
So
perfect. Thanks.
Chris Wall is with EQB Strategic, and he's going to share with us some highlights from the advocacy work that we've been doing for the past year plus. And then also a little bit of a forecast of what's ahead in the General Assembly in this coming year. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you for those insights.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly, and always good to be with everyone this evening. I apologize that I can't be on video. I'm mobile, so I'll spare everybody the bobbing back and forth of the background. But you know, it's been a really, I think this is our 2-year anniversary with Centralina. When we first came on, you know, one of the biggest challenges that we had, which is also an opportunity, was just kind of reintroducing Centralina to the General Assembly. We've had a younger, electorate or delegation in the General Assembly. A lot of those individuals didn't come up through the traditional, local government channels like they have in the past, and so they didn't have a lot of exposure to the COGS. And so one of the things that we did in the very beginning is, reintroduce Centralina, let them know who we are, what we do, who our members are, and how we can help them. And I think we did a really good job of an education and again, start that relationship building. And then we started looking at, when Connect Beyond came on, we started looking at, all right, now we've got some specific legislative asks, and walking through with the team at Centralina and kind of refining our message as to how we wanted to build that. Then that gave us another opportunity to go to Raleigh, sit down in front of not only our delegation, the members in our region that are in the General Assembly, but those that are in leadership roles outside of the Centralina region. Again, reintroduce ourselves, talk about, what our goals are, what we're trying to do in the region. We had great feedback from that. We actually had a specific legislative ask going into the last short session. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We probably weren't as successful as we anticipated that we would be. A couple of things that worked against us. One, the General Assembly just didn't spend money, and we were asking for money. But two, it also allowed us to, we were working with specific members of the General Assembly, and now we have a really good idea of who our champions are and who is going to be supportive of us. And we're poised to go into the long session in 2023 armed with that information. We've been doing outreach when those men and women got out, and we're all waiting to see the results of the elections. But I think for by and large, the most part, our Centralina will be intact. The delegation that we have in Raleigh will be intact going into 2023. But now we know where, who our players are, who our champions are, and where we need to focus our efforts. So I think we're really poised to make great progress in 2023 on Connect Beyond. And Kelly, if it's okay with you, I'll just kind of roll into how we kind of see 23 going. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So again, I think if you look at the Charlotte, the greater Centralina region, for the most part, the delegation is going to remain the same. There may be a few changes here and there, but we've got some big legislative leaders in the state. I think it's safe to say, and please don't shoot the messenger, I think it's safe to say that the Republicans are going to maintain the majority in both the House and the Senate. I think at this point in time, we're really just looking to see, will the Republicans gain super majorities? There's a decent chance that will happen. We are poised either way to work with the General Assembly because of the efforts that we have undertaken over the last 2 years, and it's a credit to Geraldine and the team and Kelly and everyone at Centralina. But I think that's the big question, supermajority or no supermajority. Going into 23, the state of North Carolina is in a really healthy fiscal position. They have almost $6 billion in the bank, and it's most likely going to be more. I mean, my amateur estimations, by the time April rolls around with tax revenue projections, I think we're going to have, $7 billion plus, unexpected to work with the General Assembly. So they're, as in the short session, they didn't want to spend a lot of money, because if they stayed in to spend money, that took up time and they wanted to get out to campaign. That's not the case for 23. I anticipate a fairly long session, probably, into November. Hopefully we'll be out by Thanksgiving. But it gives us a real opportunity to get in, really starting in December, and just right after the elections, working with our champions, making sure that they are prepared and they're educated as possible for not only Connect Beyond, but what other legislative priorities that the board comes up with. And we start on our education campaign. So as soon as they hit the ground in January, we've already done our homework. We've already educated our members. And then it's about maintaining and focusing on getting it in the right bills. And when the budget or, if it's broadband legislation, when that happens, we're ready to go with our ask and our request to best benefit the Centralina members. And I think we've got a game plan in place. We'll see what the elections give us, but we're prepared either way. So with that, Kelly, I'll turn it back to you and happy to answer any questions.
Pause there to see if there are any questions for Chris before we move on to the rest of our discussion.
Questions?
I just thought it was interesting that, that he made the comment that, we know who our champions are now, and it's taken us 2 years to get there. And then making the comment that we should be keeping, for the majority of it, keeping those same folks there in our 9 counties. May I ask him a question, Bobby?
Yes.
So Chris, at one time, and this is Martha Sue, and at one time in our 9 counties, we had 40% of the House and 40% of the Senate. Is that pretty much true now or not? That's an unfair question, but you ought to know it probably.
Yeah, no, you still have the same amount of members in your 9-county region. I think obviously, if you look at if you take Mecklenburg out, so Mecklenburg, I mean, again, let's just go back and we're talking about reality, right? The Republicans are in charge. The majority of Mecklenburg, or pretty much, I think, 98% of Mecklenburg state elected officials are Democrats. It's in those surrounding counties that Centralina has or is afforded a great luxury in the fact that not only do you get into the majority party, but a lot of those members are in leadership. I think one of the reasons I made that comment is because, look, in Raleigh, everything's politics, right? And not only are you dealing with Republicans versus Democrats and House versus Senate, but then you're dealing with the politics within the Democrat caucus and the Republican caucus. And, and that's an ever evolving landscape. And now, I'll be very specific with you. Senator Paul Newton from Cabarrus County, who's in our region, who is getting ready to be, unless something drastic were to change, I think the odds are he will be made the new majority leader in the Senate. Very powerful position, very supportive of what we're doing in Connect Beyond. He was a finance chair up until this point. So even though he was supportive of what we were doing, he wasn't in a great position to advance our agenda just because of his committee assignments. Now he's in a completely different situation, and he's going to be one of our champions. So that's just an example of how things, evolve and change in Raleigh, and we just adapt with how that goes.
Thank you, Martha Sue. Any further questions for Mr. Wall? Chris, I always enjoy hearing from you and what you're doing for our region. I know it's difficult when you talk about politics. You talk about Democrats, Republicans, and butting heads and everything else goes on over there. So you're right in the middle of it. So that's some place probably that we do not want to be. So I thank you for doing what you do.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it, and I enjoy working for you guys, so thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anything before Chris goes away, or Chris, you're going to stay with us or go or leave us? Kelly, I think, has got something else for us.
So thank you for that recap, Chris. Just wanted to kind of move on to our sort of next step. And we're looking at developing, as I mentioned, an advocacy agenda. And so this is really going to be to advance those Raleigh relations. So what Chris just talked about, we want to leverage those relationships that we've been building and kind of use that to move forward and promote some of these other priorities that are out there for us to advocate for. So we'd like to have a mix of priorities that would be where we would be able to inform policymaking, but also somewhere we'd be able to pursue funding, like as Chris mentioned with the Connect Beyond ask that we had earlier this year. So this is a little bit of an overview of kind of the timeline that we've taken for this process. So up to now, we've been focusing on kind of doing an sort of an environmental scan for potential advocacy priorities. We've looked at what some of our communities have in their advocacy agendas. We've also had an initial discussion with the regional managers group as well to identify some priorities there. We've also talked internally, we've had conversations with Chris to kind of help us come up with some potential areas to focus on. So then moving forward, this month and next month, we plan to gather input on those priorities from you all, as well as from our managers group, which will be meeting next month. So we'll have a similar discussion with them that we're going to be having in just a moment. Next month we'll have with them. Then also next month, we're going to be fine tuning those priorities and also having some further discussions with Chris on kind of some specific opportunities and activities that we can use to advance those priorities. December will be spent finalizing that agenda so that we can bring it to the executive board in January at their meeting for adoption. So that's kind of the process that we're taking, the approach. And so I mentioned that we've done a sort of environmental scan so far to help us come up with some potential focus areas. And this is what we have on our short list for right now. And this is really an emerging list. It's developing, but just kind of what we're thinking through right now. So Chris mentioned Connect Beyond Regional Mobility Initiative. We want to keep that on our list, continuing that advocacy. As he mentioned, we have our champions, so we want to continue working with them in the General Assembly and building those relationships and continuing to promote that project. One of the items that we did hear from the regional managers group during that preliminary conversation we had with them was an interest in seeing some additional funding for local transportation projects. And so I will say that part of our next steps with Connect Beyond in terms of implementation involves advancing the plan subcommittee that the executive board actually or the chairman actually just is forming. And that will be focused on implementation. And so one of the things that we'll be looking at as part of that process through the subcommittee will be additional funding. So we'll be working, that is something we're already kind of working on. Also related to transportation is advanced transportation technologies and infrastructure investment strategies. Really, this is focused on electric vehicles. And so there is a lot of funding out there at the state level for electric vehicle infrastructure. So really what we want to do with this priority area is to help connect communities with that funding. How can you pursue it, apply for it, manage those funds? So that's kind of the area that we're looking at there. Third one is digital equity. So there's also funding out there for broadband expansion. And so a couple of opportunities that exist for us would be to help, again, helping connect communities with those resources. We could play a role in the planning efforts to bring broadband to unserved areas of this region. We could also potentially help advocate for communities that have unserved areas and helping to bring broadband resources there. And then the third one is the long-term care ombudsman program. So part of that is actually a priority of the State COG Association, as well as the North Carolina Association of Area Agencies on Aging. And so really this would be supporting that priority which would really be focused on helping to sort of bridge the gap for funding for the ombudsman program, to help cover the costs of additional staff for that program. So that's something that we would be able to support as part of those priorities. So this is, again, this is just an emerging list, a draft list, if you will. But just wanted to share this with you all tonight to let you know kind of what we're currently thinking about. And just wanted to pause there to see if there are any initial reactions to what you see here. Any thoughts? Yes.
Just thinking, we have a pretty good relationship with our representative Warren. Will you provide something, some kind of highlights that we could have what we call an elevator conversation in order to get them involved?
Absolutely, yes. That would be part of what we would see in the implementation phase. Once we get the priorities identified, is be able to have something for you all to take out when you're meeting with your legislators to be able to talk about these priorities. We do currently have information on Connect Beyond, since that's one of the ones we've already been working on. But yes, absolutely. We have some talking points available for you all.
Kelly, I have a comment. I'm sorry. Martha, so you go
We have a
ahead.
short window. We really have a short window. Election day, since I'm not on there this year, is it the 8th? November 8th. No, November 8th, from the time those folks are elected until Thanksgiving, or until the week before Thanksgiving. Those 2 weeks, we have got a short window there that we need to make sure that if they're reelected, we go back and say something to them. If they're newly elected, we go do that. Because when y'all think about it, you know, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, or Thanksgiving and New Year's, it's hard to pull people together. And then January the 18th or 20th, whenever they go into office, it's not far away. So is that part of our plan, Kelly, is to collectively, or is that going back to us individually then to get into that window after election to talk with these folks? I mean, go ahead.
So we as staff would be taking the lead on that outreach. We'd be letting you all know about opportunities for you all
Gotcha.
as well to participate in that.
But in that first time, is that when you're doing it, trying?
So we've been talking with Chris kind of about that timeline, and the goal is to start doing some outreach before the end of the calendar year. So in December.
Yeah, and that's a real tough time for folks because of the holidays and, but yeah, I've just been around too long, I guess.
Kelly, I was going to mention, you mentioned electric vehicles. This is something I've talked with a representative in Arnold County from the state senate about that. That means our gas tax is shrinking, and our gas tax is used to pay for our local streets for the cities and towns out here. And what we're going to do about that? And it could be some type of fee or tax on electric vehicles, whether whether it's charging stations or their maintenance needs, whatever you do to electric vehicles to keep them running, other than charge them up. But adding a tax or a fee to that to offset, when I put gasoline in my vehicle, I'm paying a gas tax that's going to help pay our streets. They're not, but if they use our streets, those electric vehicles are heavier than my vehicle, that big battery in it and so on. So that's more wear and tear that they're putting on the streets and highways than I am on my vehicle. So something needs to be done to offset that, that's what I wrote. I wrote some of that down just to get it out there, because that's an ongoing conversation that we're having with our state senator, Senator Sawyer, who's speaking of. And she's on the transportation committee, so we're talking about that with her. And she's trying to get some support with that on what to do and how to do it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, real quick, I believe Vicky's proposing some legislation or building some legislation with regards to that, and to be some additional taxes on, or the taxes they're currently collecting for sales taxes on service vehicle related or service related type of items, whether it's tires or batteries or whatever, and putting that into the fund to go back out through the DOT or
I've heard that windshield wipers, anything like
that, collecting that tax.
Yes.
That instead of sales, instead of going into general fund, going specifically back in infrastructure.
I've heard that too, but yeah, I don't want to be taxed extra.
No, it's the part,
Just for,
I believe it's this, I think they're just gonna take it and allocate it. So they're already taking it today in the sales tax. I think instead it'll be allocated towards the infrastructure instead of the general fund.
Correct.
I believe it's my understanding.
Right. I have heard that too also. Good, thank you.
So that was actually a good segue, Mr. Chairman, into the discussion that we wanted to have this evening with you all.
purpose.
I thought so, yeah. So there you have at your seats a worksheet that has 2 questions on it. And what we wanted to encourage you all to do was at your table is to have a little bit of a discussion about the priorities that you all would like us to consider or including in this advocacy agenda. So 2 questions there. One, what issue areas could benefit from increased regional advocacy at the state level? And then also, how can we best support you all in your community's legislative advocacy efforts? We'd like to take just a few minutes here for you all to talk amongst yourselves, jot down any ideas or initial thoughts you might have, and you'll just leave those at your seats, and we're gonna collect them.
And for those of you on Zoom, we're going to go into a very quick breakout room so I can get your feedback on those questions. So in a moment, you'll see a prompt to join a breakout room. So if you could just virtually come on over with me in a room and we'll have the same conversation. So I'm going to open that room now. Kelly, about 5 minutes, you say?
Kelly, we're back from the breakout rooms.
It looks like our breakout rooms in the next room have just wrapped up their discussions. So again, if you all just want to leave your worksheets at your seats, we'll collect those at the end of the night. But thank you. I hope there was some good discussion and about some potential priorities, areas where you'd like to see some additional advocacy. I did just want to note too, that you mentioned in the scan of potential priorities, one of the things that we are looking at or monitoring are the advocacy agenda development processes of the league and the county commission association. So again, we know that they're in the midst of doing this as well. So just to be aware, we're just keeping an eye on what they're focusing on as well. But thank you all. And Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Actually, that was one of mine.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you everyone for participating. Kelly just mentioned the league and the County Commission Association. In my table, county folks, they also mentioned the league. And the league reaches out in the same kind of thing here. So I think all working together on that with the same issues, we hope. Everybody on the same page. All right, that brings us close to our agenda. Looking at the agenda here, the only thing left is comments from the Board of Delegates and Centralina staff. Martha Sue Hall, anything you'd like to say?
Boy, that was me.
Oh, I meant that because I knew she was going to say something. I knew she wanted to say something.
Permission ahead of
I
time.
know,
Bobby.
that permission was relayed to me, so I recognized her first and foremost.
So each of us in this room has been given some holy manna. Those of us on the screen as well as those in here with our ARPA money, okay? And I call it holy manna because quote unquote, we ain't seen it. We've not seen this before and we will not see it again. To that end, the league, the association, the COGS, who else was a part of that? School of Government,
County Association.
county, and everybody has been doing these tours across the state. And they've had 4 of them where they're talking about ARPA money, how to spend it, what to spend it on, not what to do, how to calculate it and all that kind of thing. There were 4 of them. First one was in Hickory, the second was in Greensboro, there's one in Rocky Mount and one in Wallace of all places. I was a bit concerned as an elected official that at the meeting in Greensboro, though there were 130, 40 people there, that the majority of those folks were paid staff. Now, I know that we have got, those of us that are elected folks have other responsibilities and jobs and families and that kind of thing. But ultimately, my friends in this room and on the screen, it is our not decision. It's our responsibility on how to spend that, whether it's $250,000 in small areas or $500 million in our larger places, okay? We're gonna have to be able to say in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, those of us who hopefully will be alive, what it is that we spent that holy manna on to make a difference in our communities. And I say that to tell you that as one of the things that the league did as a feedback for these 2 meetings and 2 more to come is that they've pulled together some information that was said there, some things that people, when they felt like they were not afraid they could speak or they could do this after they've gotten home, how they really felt about things. And they have collected those comments. I was given an opportunity to get those comments yesterday and ask permission from the league if we could share them, and we can. So as a follow-up from today, Kelly and Geraldine, Kelly probably, God bless her, will send you all a couple of pages of comments okay? And it's real heart to heart from local people. There's some appointed staff people as well. But guys, we're not gonna see this anymore. We need to, it's almost like taking this money and seeing how much more money you can make from it. We gotta, in my opinion, we've got to take this money and do the best good that we can do, that we can actually say, it was this bottle of water that we did. Whether it's putting the sewage or whatever it is, we've got to be able to defend what it is we spend it on. So don't jump too quickly, okay? Now, that's my comment, but I will stop and say that Geraldine, again, this region and Geraldine at the helm is being looked at by other cogs in our state on what she and our staff have done with us, leading us through this process. And they were right, they hit the ground running as soon as we got the money. So we are leaders in this, but they're gonna look to us on how it is and what it is we're being created to spend it on. So look for those comments or look for those couple of sheets of paper in the next week or so as Kelly sends out the report from today. Thank you for the time, Bob.
Thank you, Martha Sue Hall, as always. Thank you. Any other delegate have anything to say, any type of comment, or Centralina staff is still on the line with us?
Oh, there's a hand raised from Mayor Pro Tem Cynthia Lewis Lemon.
Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Hey, thank you for your time. I just want to piggyback off of what Miss Martha Sue Hall said. I was at that meeting in Greensboro, and it was enlightening to learn everything that it was saying. But the thing for me was that aha moment when they talked about the different colors when it came down to the opera money. And I love the fact that walking in there, I felt like I was the smartest person in the room because of the fact that Centralina has given us all the tools and all the things that we need to know. So the things that they was talking about then, I knew about it already because of the fact that I had the opportunity to sit down on the different monitoring things when they was talking about the ARPA funds and stuff like that. So just like Miss Martha Sue said, we have the tools. We've learned the things, and Miss Geraldine has given us all the things that we need. And it was disheartening, like she was saying, that there was a handful of us that was there. And but you need to, if you're a delegate, if you're a person that's on this cog with everybody and you need help, use the tools, use the things, use the information, use the resources that is being provided to you through Centralina. Because I promise you, everything that they talked to us about at that meeting, I was ahead of the game because of the fact that Geraldine and her staff made us ready for it. And I just want to say thank you.
Wonderful comments. Thank you. Is the TV camera here? She needed to be on TV to say all that, all those accolades. Thank you so much. Very good comments. Any other hands raised?
No.
All right, that's it. Okay. Any other comments? Centralina staff still on the line? Anything to say? Anyone in the room? Any delegates? All right. Comments from our executive director, Geraldine Gordon.
Well, I'll just say that all the ARPA credit really goes to Kelly, Grace, Susie, Kate, Christina, Denise, and Tisha. They've been really the team to do all of that. Real quick, I want to express my appreciation to all of you who've been a delegate this year. This is our last delegate meeting of the calendar year. So I hope you will come back and join us and represent your community on the Centralina board next year. And our annual meeting will be in February. So we look forward to that.
Thank you, Executive Director Geraldine Gordon. Appreciate your leadership throughout the year. And so my closing comments is the Charlotte Aviation Academy. When you made your tour, looking at the brochures and all the information that was there, you might have seen this brochure. I'll be brief so we can leave. It's almost, our time's almost up. Charlotte Aviation Academy is coming up. And the next one will be January through March of 2023. The purpose of the academy is for the public sector, private sector, and community leaders to better understand Charlotte Douglas International Airport and its contributions to the community in the region as the biggest economic driver in the region. Our Secretary and Interim Treasurer, Jarvis Woodburn from Anson County, was the most recent one here to take it. Mr. Jarvis, you have anything to say regarding the benefits of that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would strongly suggest that if anybody gets the opportunity to jump on it, because I went through it, it was thoroughly enjoyable, and one thing that jumped out at me is you really get an opportunity to learn the nuts and bolts of what makes Charlotte Douglas International Airport tick. You know, it's all behind the scenes. You get a chance to see it, get it explained to you, touch it, feel it. It's really exciting. So anybody get a chance to go, jump on it.
Thank you, Mr. Woodburn. I also took it a few years ago, and what I got out of it was I got to go in the air traffic control tower. Oh my gosh, I mean, it's really awesome. So you get to do that if you do it. Planning, safety, security, the complex systems. Application period will open in October and close before Thanksgiving. So you got a good month or so to do it. We'll be limited to 25 participants who will be selected on a competitive admissions process. Please contact Emily Parker here at Centralina, eparker@centralina.org, or Kelly with any questions or details. And I'll give you a little hint. She's got several applications already, but none from you guys, none from local government folks. So I think you get in there and you'll be moved at the top of the list. How much is it? How much is it, Kelly? Have you any idea right off?
Wow.
250.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know.
I don't know exactly.
I just knew there was we were just talking about it, and I told her it was limited to a certain number, and I knew there was some cost, but I couldn't remember how
And
much.
there is some
Those $400,
scholarship money
like 400,
available.
400?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There is grant scholarship money available, yes. And Kelly or Emily could help you with that. It is well worth it. But again, it's just wonderful what you learned there. Okay, real quick, since yes, we do have some new Board of delegate members here, and hopefully when the new year comes, just want you to know that as a delegate, you're a decision maker, you're an advisor, you're a connector, you're a champion, and you're a representative. And I really appreciate that. As Geraldine said, we have some elections coming up, several local communities holding elections. Good luck to those who are running for re-election. And I'd like to take a moment to recognize our Centralina delegates who are retiring as elected officials because they are not running for re-election. So is anybody here not running and it's going to be it for you? Anybody online or here in this room? Well, I think that's good. Oh, good. Okay. I want to thank our delegates and alternates for representing communities on the Board of Delegates this year. The delegates just have 4 meetings, whereas the executive board meets the other months. So we've reached the end of our agenda. No further business. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Yes, sir.